Well, hello xenographers everywhere and welcome to another episode. As film photography becomes more popular, camera prices have risen and many professional and top-of-the-line consumer cameras are now quite expensive. But that's not true of all cameras at this level, and today we're going to look at four that are still very affordable. The Canon T90 is a professional level SLR from the mid-1980s, and if you've used a modern DSLR, you'll be right at home with this one. It's modern in every respect, all except autofocus, which it doesn't have. Being a camera for professionals, it's extremely well made, and it accepts all the wonderful Canon FD lenses. This camera broke the mould and established camera design for many years to come. It's rounded, curvy and curvaceous, a design philosophy that's still used for DSLRs today. Computerized electronics mean the full range of exposure modes is available. That's aperture priority, shutter priority, program mode and fully manual. And shutter speeds run from 30 seconds all the way up to 1/4000th of a second plus B. There are several different metering modes too that suit every lighting condition you're likely to encounter, and this camera does away with the traditional control layout of SLRs. All functions are set by pressing buttons and using the single control wheel to change parameters, and all the values of those parameters are displayed on the LCD panel. This is one of the most advanced and capable film cameras ever made, and while at first it might seem complex, it's actually very simple to use. Just set the exposure mode, focus, and off you go. Looking inside, we can see the metal vertical travel shutter, and when you take a shot, the built-in motor drive advances the film automatically. And if you switch to continuous shooting, this camera will blast out shots at the incredible rate of 4.5 frames per second. Given all this capability, you might think this camera would be expensive, but you'd be wrong. These can be found in good working order with a Canon FD lens for less than £100. It's not the prettiest camera in the world, and it's certainly not the smallest, but it's one of the most capable film SLRs ever made, and at this price it's an absolute bargain. The Minolta XGM is a much more traditional looking SLR, and it was the top of the line in Minolta's consumer range, so it's a fully featured, very capable camera. It takes the highly regarded Minolta MD range of lenses, so it'll make some fantastic images too. It's got both aperture priority auto exposure, a very useful feature, and full manual mode, so you've got full control over images if that's how you want to shoot. It's very well made too, and there's a real feeling of quality to this little machine. All the controls operate smoothly and precisely, and this is clearly a high precision machine in the best tradition of Japanese cameras. The top deck is neat, minimal and uncluttered, and very conventional in its layout, which is no bad thing. The film wind lever's on the right and the shutter speed selector is right next to it. There's a hot shoe in the centre, and on the left is the rewind crank, the exposure compensation control and the film speed selector. Pull up the crank to open the back, and inside we see a Leica style horizontal travel shutter, a reliable and long-lived design that's been used in many cameras over the years. Shutter speeds run from 1 second to 1/1000th of a second plus B, so it doesn't have quite the speed range of a fully professional camera, but in my opinion it has all the speeds you're ever likely to reasonably need. This is a very high quality bit of kit, but Minolta cameras don't seem to be quite so sought after as some cameras from other manufacturers, perhaps because the Minolta brand is now defunct, so there are some real bargains to be had if you look around. They tend to cost from around £40 to around £60, and at that price, this has got to be a great little bargain. Here's another 80s SLR from Canon, the T70 model, and as you can see, it has a real 1980s look about it. It's angular and sleek, and like the T90, everything except focusing is automatic, including film loading and rewind, film advance and exposure, although it does shoot in manual too. Like its brother camera, the T90, this camera takes all of the Canon FD lenses. There's a massive range to choose from, and 80s FD lenses, sometimes called new FD lenses, tend to be less expensive than earlier FD lenses, with no difference in optical quality. This was Canon's top-of-the-range consumer model, and it was a revolutionary camera in its day, with none of the traditional SLR controls. Instead, there are dedicated buttons and switches, an LCD screen where the parameters are displayed, and two buttons labelled up and down to change them. The camera's got 3 exposure modes: program, which is fully automatic, shutter priority auto, and fully manual, so you can take full control if that's the way you like to shoot. Inside, we find a nicely engineered metal shutter, similar to the T90. There's a continuous shooting mode too. It's relatively slow at 0.7 shots per second, although that's probably a bit faster than you could wind and shoot manually. Although it might seem a complex camera, it's actually really simple to use. 80s cameras seem to be a bit unfashionable at the moment, perhaps because they don't have the look of earlier SLRs, but beauty is only skin deep. This is a very capable camera. It takes all the Canon FD lenses and it's really cheap. I bought this one with an f1.4 lens for £26. This camera might just be the best value SLR in the world. Finally, a camera that will give you the stripped down, bare bones, all manual rangefinder experience, and it will do it with some considerable style. It's the early Zorky 3, made by KMZ in Russia from the mid to late 50s. In my opinion, it's one of the nicest cameras produced by the Soviet photographic industry. There's no doubt about it, the Zorky 3 is something a little bit special. All the Soviet rangefinders are derivatives of the 1930s Barnack Leica design, and you can clearly see that in this model. Just like the Leica 3, the Zorky has a slow speed dial on the front, and it generally has a pleasingly vintage appearance. It has a real feeling of quality too. Everything's beautifully finished, and all the markings are nicely engraved, rather than printed as they are on the later Zorky 4 and 4K models. It's got a fantastic lens too. The Jupiter 8 is a copy of the Zeiss Sonar design, and it makes some great images. The L39 thread mount means this camera can mount hundreds of other high quality vintage lenses too, from Leica, Canon, Reed, Voigtlander and all the Russian manufacturers. The top deck is beautifully simple and uncluttered. The film wind control is on the right, with the shutter speed selector right next door, which you lift and turn to change speeds. To the front is the lever to disengage the shutter for rewinding, and the film rewind control is on the left. It's no surprise to find a Leica type cloth shutter inside, with speeds running from 1 second to 1,000th of a second and B. These are not the most common Russian cameras, and they're not the cheapest either, but they're one of the most nicely made, and in my opinion they're definitely the most stylish. These cameras often sell for around £100, but I've bought them for £50, including this one. They're a very nice, very usable camera, and they're a great way into the world of film rangefinders. So there we are, 4 top-of-the-range film cameras that can be bought today for less, sometimes much less, than £100. They're all high-quality machines with great lenses, they're simple to use, they'll last many years, and they'll all make some fantastic images. So that's it from me for now. Don't forget to like, subscribe and ring the bell before you go. And if you enjoy the content on this channel and you'd like to support it, you can do so at patreon.com/Zenography. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time for some more Zenography.